Chapter 5. The Final Attack. Joseph Dunn's Survival and the Hunt for the Shark. At St. Peter's Hospital in New Brunswick, Joseph Dunn lay pale against white sheets, his leg bound in thick bandages. The doctors whispered among themselves, unsure if he could withstand the fever that would follow such wounds. Infection was the silent killer of the age, and the shark had left his flesh ragged and torn. His mother sat at his bedside, stroking his hair, tears shining in her eyes. "You're a brave boy, Joey. You fought it off. You're safe now." Joseph stirred, his voice weak but steady. "It wouldn't let go, Mama. It pulled so hard. But the boys, they saved me." His survival was hailed as a miracle. Newspapers seized upon it, printing headlines that shouted hope amid the terror. "Shark defeated. Boy escapes with life." Yet Joseph's story was no comfort to the families of Lester Stillwell and Stanley Fisher, who mourned as Matawan draped itself in grief. Funerals drew crowds that overflowed church doors. The congregation hushed, their prayers heavy with dread. Fear now turned to action. The governor of New Jersey called for immediate measures. Rewards were offered for the capture or killing of the man-eater. Local fishermen, once content with their summer hauls, armed themselves with rifles, harpoons, and dynamite. The newspapers fueled the frenzy. Illustrations of monstrous sharks leapt from front pages, their jaws gaping wide. Cartoons showed terrified bathers fleeing the surf. Reporters painted lurid images of a beast haunting the coast, a sea-wolf with a taste for human flesh. At taverns and on docks, men swore vengeance. "They've taken our boys," one fisherman growled, loading his rifle. "Now we'll take them." Armadas of small boats put out to sea, their occupants scanning the waves for fins. Some fired wildly at shadows. Others dropped baited hooks strung with slabs of meat. Still others hurled dynamite into the surf, the explosions booming across the bays. The Atlantic, which only weeks earlier had been a playground, was now a battlefield. Tourist towns felt the shock at once. Beaches that had been thronged were suddenly empty, striped tents flapping idly in the breeze. Boardwalk vendors complained of ruin, their taffy and lemonade going unsold. Hotel owners wrung their hands watching guests pack trunks and catch trains inland. "Better to roast in the city than risk the sea," one woman declared as she herded her children into a carriage. Lifeguards patrolled the sands in vain, their whistles silent. The horizon seemed haunted. Any ripple could be a fin. The panic climbed so high it reached the White House. President Woodrow Wilson, already burdened with the shadow of war in Europe, was briefed on the killings. Though skeptical of tales of sea monsters, he could not ignore the national frenzy. Funds were authorized for federal intervention. The Coast Guard was ordered to join the hunt, its cutters scanning the New Jersey coast with rifles at the ready. "The people must be reassured," Wilson said gravely. "This menace must be ended." On July 14th, the hunt reached its climax. At Raritan Bay, a group of fishermen set their nets. Among them was Michael Schleiser, a taxidermist and showman. As they hauled the lines, a great thrashing erupted in the shallows. The water boiled with fury as a massive shark entangled itself in the net. "Hold fast!" Schleiser shouted, gripping an oar. The beast snapped and lunged, nearly capsizing the boat. In desperation, Schleiser raised a broken oar and battered the creature's skull. Gunshots rang out. At last, after a savage struggle, the shark lay still. It was hauled ashore to great fanfare, a great white shark weighing over 300 pounds. When its belly was cut open, the remains of human flesh and bone were reportedly found within. The headlines blared across the country. "Man-eater slain, coast at last safe." Crowds gathered to gape at the carcass, its jaws propped open for photographers, its dead eyes glassy and unblinking. To many it was the very monster that had haunted the Jersey coast, now slain like a dragon of old. In Matawan, the news brought little comfort. Lester Stillwell was gone. Stanley Fisher, the tailor who had risked everything, was buried a hero. Mothers still kept their children far from the creek's edge. Yet slowly, people crept back to the shore. By August, the beaches began to fill once more. Fear dulled into memory, and memory dulled into myth. But in the quiet hours, those who had seen the attacks could not forget. The ocean's surface might glitter with sunlight, but beneath it, something darker always lurked. The summer of 1916 had taught a terrible truth. The sea was not ours. It never had been.